So maybe just quickly, so thank you everybody for joining our workshop today on building your online presence. Our facilitator is going to be Jessie Hodgson, and she'll be talking to us all about how you can increase your presence online. Today's format, I believe, is going to be a presentation with some group exercises and discussion, so there will be some interaction. The workshop will run for about an hour. Of course, we're always open to Q&A throughout the session. Just use your raise hand feature on Zoom. And we look forward to this being a good discussion. So Jessie, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Hi, everyone. This is such a lovely size for a workshop, so I'm really excited to dive into this, and hopefully we can get lots of engagement and participation. So as Daniel said, my name is Jessie Hodgson, and I've been working in HR for about 15 years. I've been working in HR in tech for about 9. So I have lots to share about kind of what recruiters are looking for in the tech space and how you can boost that with your online presence. So I will share right off the bat that there is a 2.0 of this presentation. We talked about this being like the 101 of your online presence, and then which is like, how do I sort of make myself searchable? How do I share my perspective online? The second is kind of building a brand. And so if there is questions around that, I'm happy to answer it, but I just want to set expectations that what we'll be talking about is like, how do you present yourself to recruiters through your online presence and looking for jobs? Any questions before we get started? Okay, cool. I'm gonna share my screen and get going on the little presentation that I built. Daniel, would you mind keeping your eye on the chat in case there's any questions that I miss while I'm presenting?
Sure, happy to.
Thank you so much. Okay, you should see build your online presence presentation. Does that look good? Right on. So this is the agenda. I don't think it's going to take the full hour. So especially with the size of the room that we're looking at, my hope is that we get some robust conversation, some Q&As going, but I'm going to go through a couple of things. So I'm going to talk about why you would do this. I'm going to talk about what is your online presence, what are startups looking for, talk a little bit about your value proposition, and then give you the chance to build and practice it, take a stab at it, and then taking it online. So giving you some kind of really tactical next steps. So I'll start with why. So there is, when you apply for a job online, my experience as a recruiter in the marketplace is that cover letters are becoming less and less common and don't really get looked at that much. And so what that means is that the only opportunity you have to present yourself is your resume. So I have this picture where there's a black and white kid playing with some sand, and then there's a full color kid playing with some sand. So your resume is like the black and white version of you. It lists some facts about you, but it is not representative of the full you. So it's like the school that you went to, the titles of the jobs that you had, and maybe a couple bullet points about that. How much experience you have, maybe some languages that you code in, and where you like to spend your time when you're coding. So front end, back end, full stack, architecture, that kind of thing. But that's not you, right? So the full you is fun. You have characteristics that make you and are really spectacular, and sort of that full package of all of these facts about you, as well as your personality and your superpowers, make you the full employee and person that you are. So maybe you love to solve problems, maybe you're a great leader, maybe you like to think critically. There's lots of things about you that make you you. How do you present that to a recruiter? Because there's so much more that they're going to need in a role than just ticking some boxes. So your resume should tick the boxes, the minimum requirements for the role, but the things that make you you are really going to help you stand out. The idea is participating in the online community, especially in such a remote and digital world, will help recruiters get to see the full you and get to know you, and really feel motivated to bring you in for an interview, get the chance to talk to you, and then learn more about you personally. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with people? I see a thumbs up. I see a nod. Awesome. So what is your online presence? When I think about online presence for a developer, it exists in so many more places than like LinkedIn. So I think that when we were exploring this originally, I was like, we can't do a LinkedIn workshop because that's just not the full suite of ways that you could engage online. So, it could be your LinkedIn. I think that's important. Could be your GitHub. It could be Stack Overflow. I think personal blog was big as I was researching this and talking about it with other developers. It could be your participation in Twitter or Reddit. There's like so many different ways that you can participate online, and these are just some of them. So my question for you is, are there any places that you hang out digitally that I've missed on this list?
What about the almighty Facebook or Meta?
Oh, Meta. Yeah, Facebook for sure.
Instagram, maybe?
There is one.
Jude, was that you that had something to say?
Yeah, it's like
No,
YouTube.
Sorry, I missed that. I think we had two people talking at once.
Yeah. I said YouTube or TikTok.
Yep.
I said Instagram.
Yeah. Okay, so it's like social. I've got Twitter here, but social in general. And then YouTube is another one too. Awesome. And they can all serve different purposes. And I want people to not feel, I know at the beginning, Janelle sort of asked like, who feels like they have a really amazing online presence, and nobody put their hand up. I don't want people to feel intimidated. So don't feel like you need to participate and play in all these spaces, but I just want people to think about all the different ways that they can participate and share their perspective. So when I think about what startups are looking for, and this will lead directly into building your value proposition, I think about like 3 buckets of things or skills. So there is technical capability. So can you build the things that need building? Do you have the experience to develop the products that need developing? So if they're looking for a backend developer, do you have experience in backend development? If they're looking for a specific language, are you able to code in that language? Like this is like real technical capability, which feels like obvious, but that's what they're looking for. The second thing is business skills. So can you help the business achieve its business goals? So can you connect what you are being asked to build to the objectives of the business? Do you have leadership skills? Can you think critically? Can you ask great questions? So you're not a robot. You're not like, you're not just sitting at a computer writing lines of code. Like there needs to be some connection to the outcomes of the business in what you're doing. And so they'd be looking for that. Do you understand the importance of that? And can you sort of translate what you're building into regular people speak so other people understand it as well? And then culture. So they're going to want to know, they're going to be looking for, are you going to help them build the kind of culture that they're trying to build? So are you going to be in alignment with their values? Are you going to support that culture and move it closer to where they want it to go? Or are you going to hurt the culture? Are you going to bring it down or move it away from the direction that they're trying to go? So these are the 3 things that startups are looking for. And through the recruitment process, they're going to be evaluating you on these things. And so the idea of sharing your online presence is like, how do you highlight these business skills and culture? How do you help them get to know you so that they can verify these things and feel super confident when you walk out of an interview or they're booking you in for a phone screen, that they're like, absolutely, yes, this person needs to come in because they're going to be able to tick all these boxes. Any questions there? Okay. So in order to have an online presence, I think you need to know what you bring to the table. So what I'd like to do is think about and have us take a first crack at developing our value proposition. Is this something that that anybody here has thought about before? Have you ever thought about like, what do I bring? What's my value prop? What's my elevator pitch, if you will? It's like the cheesy way to say it, but yeah, Lauren.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind, even having recently done hiring for the team, is on LinkedIn. When you write that daunting about me section or executive summary, it's like, okay, how do I present myself in 300 words or nothing too long or too short? So that's what I think about as an example when I think of a value prop.
Perfect. That's such a great way of making it concrete for people. Like, this is exactly what I would love, is like you leave this workshop with that description, at least in draft, that you can put onto your LinkedIn. Has anyone ever done anything like this before? Just so I know what we're working with. Hi, Daniel.
Hey, I just had a quick question. Would you say it's similar to the professional summary you might include at the beginning of your resume or top of your resume?
Yep, that's totally it. Hi, Nicholas.
I've done the summary on LinkedIn, and basically I was working with somebody who was going through that process of redrafting their LinkedIn and trying to get it to a better place. And so I followed their example and created my own. I think the other place where we've all done, or most of us have done, a value proposition would be just completing our Helix profile for commit.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And I think that the most important thing, unless anybody else has any more questions before I move on. Awesome. I think the most important thing I want to share is that, like, you won't be a perfect fit for all companies. And I think that the expectation that you should make yourself like palatable for everybody is going to mean that you're not very memorable to anybody. So what you uniquely bring to the table, knowing what that is, understanding what it is, and making sure that you're able to communicate that in a clear and concise way is going to really stand out with the right employer. And if it takes some kind of confidence to say, like, if what I have to say doesn't resonate with you, then maybe it's not the right fit, but it's better in the long run if you're finding a place that, you know, what they're putting down, you're really picking up, and vice versa, that you feel really good about what you bring to the table, and so do they. I think I want to ask a question, which is like, how does that feel? The idea of sort of having a clear and concise message that feels a bit like a line in the sand, like, this is who I am, this is what I have to offer, that is palatable to not all companies. Does that feel counter to what you've heard about in the past? Yes, Louisa.
I don't know if it feels counter necessarily, but one thing I think about in that similar vein is coming across as too almost formal in a way versus too casual, especially for folks who are really starting to, you know, break into the startup space. Some people, when they think of startups, they think of, you know, t-shirts and shorts every day to the office, you know, very, very laid back, but you don't want to come across that way in your summary section. So would love to hear tips about how to find a balance there.
Totally. Any other thoughts on that about like really kind of developing your online presence and then standing proudly in it? Does it feel comfortable? Yes, Lauren.
I know, a bit silly, but I feel like it's a safe space to share. But I feel like with the value prop, it's, to Louise's point, finding the balance, but not making it sound too, I don't know if egotistical is the right word, but just like, I'm so great at A, B, and C, like how to, I always want to make sure it's coming across as genuine and not too much ego, or like with someone reading it, like they're going to be able to see who I am, like as you mentioned earlier, like the colorful side of the photo, like what is special about me, without it being too like I've done A, B, and C and I'm great at X, Y, and Z type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird to speak about yourself in that way, and it takes practice. It definitely takes some getting used to. Nicholas.
I think it gets easier the longer your career is, because I like Lauren's point about the balance between coming across as arrogant or insecure. Like there's a line in between, just like too formal or casual. And the longer you've worked, the more you start to truly know your skills. So it's kind of harder at the beginning. You're taking yourself on faith, where the longer you're in your career in one sense, or after you've had some experience, you can measure. Well, I guess the measure I've tried to use is finish writing those things and then look at them, am I prepared to answer for this? And am I really what's there? Because, if you overstate yourself, and that's not good, or understate. So I use kind of, I look at what I've written and ask whether I'm willing to, whether I see myself answering for those things.
I think that's such a good point. This is it is a place to be proud, but don't stretch too far so that you aren't able to fulfill on your promises, right? I think that's such a good point. Thank you, Nicholas. And Louise, I didn't answer your question about being too formal or too casual. I think it is a personal choice. I think in the startup world, personality is welcome. Like the opportunity to bring your whole self to work is welcome. As an example, on my professional profile on LinkedIn, which you're welcome to look me up, it says some blurb about how I create business-centered people solutions, and it's pretty formal. And then it says lover of the ocean and gummies, and because those are two of my favorite things, it's pretty like, I'm not really offending anybody. Like no one's gonna be mad that I like gummies, but and like regular gummies, not but it is like, it shows my personality. It is reflective of me. And it's also like something to start a conversation about. So personally, as a recruiter, I really love the like personal interest section on a resume. It's a bit divisive. Not everybody loves it, but like if someone says that they love cooking, I'm like, good. I'm looking for ways to make people feel comfortable. I'm looking for ways to get to know that person and make them, be themselves in an interview. And if I get to ask them a question about like, what's your favorite cuisine to cook? That's a gift for me. So I think, showing a bit of yourself that isn't political, it's not going to offend anybody, but it's going to give them a chance to see who you really are, is a wonderful thing. So I've created a little framework and some ideas that you can think about while you're developing your value proposition. So TBC, hopefully you can remember that as an acronym. I sort of explained what each of these were a couple of slides ago, but here are some things to get your brain working on what your value proposition could be. So what languages do you know? what level would you give yourself in those languages? So would you consider yourself a beginner? Would you consider yourself an expert? How long have you been coding? What are you the best at building? Like, how does your brain work best? Do you find bugs really well? Or are you the kind of person who can like take nothing and make it into something? I think that's important to know. And then on the business side, how do you solve problems? Do you like to lead or work in a team, or are you kind of a lone wolf? Do you work best on your own? Can you translate business problems into technical solutions? Are you able to understand and explain why we're building what we're building? Those kinds of things. And then culture. So how do you engage with your coworkers? When have you felt the most comfortable and fulfilled? What opportunities have been the most fun for you? Like, what is your superpower when it comes to engaging with the rest of the team? And how would you really contribute to an amazing culture? So I would like to, I think because the group is not that big, what I'm going to do is like I'm going to change my original breakdown of what this was, because I want all of us to stay together in the trust tree. So I am going to give you guys 5 to 7 minutes to develop your own value proposition. So this is something that you can work on over time and draft and redraft, but I'd love for us to get the chance to develop some draft of your value proposition today using the TBC model. I've created an example here that you can have a look at and sort of model yours after. But I'd love everybody to kind of walk out of this workshop understanding what they bring to the table and being able to have it in a concise way. And then I'd like us to all come together, and if we feel comfortable, share what our value proposition is with the group. How does that sound? So I have a question and a request. In terms of being able to look at something while you're writing your value proposition, would you prefer to look at the example that I've and you can tell me in the chat, would you prefer to look at the example that I've drafted, or would you like me to go back to the framework slide? So some of those questions, which one would be better for you?
I have a suggestion. Could you go back to the previous slide, but then put the example in the chat?
Yeah. Oops. Maybe not as easily as I thought. Yes, I can in 1 second. That's a good idea. And then I'm going to ask all of you, I'll put a timer on for 6 minutes. And then I'm going to ask you all to put your hand up when you feel like you're done, just so I have a sense you're not just like sitting there waiting if we're all finished. Yes, Lauren.
Sorry, just a quick question. I sometimes have a bad habit of like getting too wordy, but like this example is only, 3 sentences. So I'm just wondering, do you have like a guideline of how long it should be? Like, I know that this is kind of following the TBC of technical business culture, but should we be kind of thinking of that, or do you want to give it, be a bit more loose with the length?
I mean, I want it to be as tight as possible because you should be able to recite it. Like, you should be able to take the main points or some of the key words and recreate it over and over again. So the next part of this is going to be talking about how you translate that brand into your online presence. So keeping it as tight as possible, and and I would say anything longer than 5 sentences is probably too long. You're not going to remember it. So ideally it would be following the sort of 3-sentence format, but if you have more to say, you've got more to say.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. So I'm going to mute everybody. If you guys could all get to work on your value props, I'm going to put this example in the chat and then move it back to the framework slide. Okay, I see lots of hands up. So I'm going to keep it moving. Thank you, everybody. So I saw Ruth asked a question, which was, does starting every sentence with I or I'm feel stilted, or is it expected? Such a good question. I would actually love to hear what the room has to say. I am having a hard time imagining how we get around that, other than talking about yourself in the third person, which feels awkward to me. Like if I'm writing something about myself and I write Jesse is da da da, like I've tried writing bios like that before and it feels pretty weird. So I think it's hard to get around it. I don't see a problem with it, but I wanted to see like how it feels for the group, what their perspective on that is.
It doesn't feel like, I think between the two, it feels a lot more awkward talking in a third person, and it makes it sound even more when you're already worried about coming across as, arrogant or something, talking about yourself, it sounds even more like Lauren is this. So between the two, I think it's not super comfortable for me to start everything with I, but between the two options, I find I makes more sense to me. Daniel?
Maybe just a general question. Do you think it would differ depending on whether you're writing this for LinkedIn or your resume? I know resume, typically you avoid using I or referring to yourself in kind of in the first person.
Is that a rule, Daniel? I don't think I've ever heard that rule before.
That's how I've always done my resume, and I don't know where I picked that up. But maybe I'm alone on that one.
I can't think now. I'm pretty sure I would speak about myself in the first person on my resume. I think you would use this in both places. That's how I would use it.
Usually I've seen like in resumes, we tend to like prefer like using past tenses rather than the present tenses. Like developed something like this and stuff, was developing.
Yeah, maybe that's where I came from. Nicholas.
Like Daniel, I was taught not to use I in things, and it's often the value proposition. I think you're not there, so reading Nick out the whole time, I would be more comfortable with that in a way. It kind of I always worry that I is sounding a bit overly familiar, but I don't know what the correct protocol is for it.
Yeah, I think I hope that you learn from this, take from this, that I want you to do what feels comfortable and authentic for you. So there are worlds, like I know higher education, for example, like there's kind of expectations in terms of how you show up. I think that there aren't really rules in tech like that. So Nick, if it feels more comfortable for you to write your blurb that says Nick does this, Nick does that, that's awesome. You should do it. And if you're feeling like you want to say I, and that feels comfortable for you, like Lauren, that's good too, as long as it's feeling authentic for you and you're still keeping a certain sort of baseline of professionalism.
Thank you. Could I ask a quick question? Does anyone do what I do, is often rewrite everything depending on who I'm passing it to or who I think will be looking at it? I often tweak things, and I might have focused on one thing, or I'm familiar in one because I know the culture that I'm going to, and other developers have worked there and they said, oh man, they're really laid back and they like friendly. Or I've changed it because I was looking for something enterprise and I know they don't want overly familiar. So does the value proposition change? Like, is it a flexible thing that you keep alive depending on what market you're seeking or who you're focusing on?
I do that. Depending on the job description. So backend developer can become full stack developer and vice versa.
My thoughts on that are, I love to see tailored communication, including a resume. So A recruiter is going to be, they're going to have a checklist that's going to look like the job description. This is my like recruiting hack for you. Like they're giving you everything you need in the job description. And if you can make your resume look as close as possible to that while being truthful, you're making it so easy for them to say yes to you. It's like, they need somebody who has what's on the job description. And so few people do that. So I think that there is flexibility for sure, but I think fundamentally you are who you are. And I want people to feel confident bringing themselves, being able to talk about themselves, as like pretty consistent. So I like the idea of it being flexible and static, but thinking about like, who am I and what do I have to bring to the table really fundamentally shouldn't change that much, depending if you're looking for something in a larger organization or in a smaller organization. Does that answer the question?
It does, thanks. Yeah. So it's sort of both, if I've understood correctly. You want to tailor yourself to the job being offered, but you can't change fundamental things like I'm a coder who knows that I like to communicate and I like to mentor. So I'm not going to become a coder that just wants to stay 100% coding. So across all the interviews, I can't change my nature unless there's something fundamentally wrong with my personality.
Yes. I think Louisa wrote something in the chat that is so perfect, that like your value prop and your about me can be flexible and tailored a bit, but it should be authentic to your skills and values. So exactly what you're describing, like what makes you nobody wins if you misrepresent yourself in an interview, because then you get into the job and you're not happy, right? So you don't win, the employer doesn't win, no one wins. So I love that sort of perspective on it. Does anybody feel comfortable sharing what they drafted? Daniel, good man.
I don't normally do this, but I'll jump in and I'll give it a shot. So here's what I wrote. I am a communications and events professional with 10 plus years of experience in large nonprofit organizations in the higher education industry, with recent experience in the technology sector and a startup company. I'm skilled at creating original content, ideation, event execution, and project management. I'm energized by working with teams and collaborating to achieve outcomes that support broader organizational goals. And I enjoy opportunities that help bridge people with new ideas and knowledge to help them become more successful in their personal and professional lives.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daniel. I feel like we learned a lot about you. Anybody else want to share?
I can share mine.
Awesome.
I wrote, I'm a backend developer with experience of working in consulting from seed-stage startups to large companies. I love working on a team that's creates solutions from scratch, and not just, and also creating maintainable solutions with a clear line between business processes and production code. I'm amazing at debugging and getting the most out of frameworks currently at my disposal.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Kingsley.
Any critique?
Any other volunteers?
I'll share mine.
Thank you.
So I wrote senior backend developer with 13 plus years in the credit reporting and financial services space. So I didn't start with I. With a background in software development from multiple perspectives, I collaborate and help steer conversations between different domain experts to build and deliver sustainable evolutionary solutions.
Awesome. Guys, what an impressive group of people we have here. I'll ask one more time. I don't want to make... Oh.
I can share mine.
Oh, I love that.
I'm a backend developer with 7 years of experience in small and medium startups. A key skill that I acquired in medical school was the ability to deal with ambiguity as a team, which has enabled me to collaborate and build scalable and robust applications from scratch.
Awesome. I'll ask one more time if anybody wants to share. I'd love to hear everyone's. If you don't feel comfortable sharing, but you want to send me your value proposition after this, I'd be happy to take a look at it and give you any feedback on it as well, if that would be helpful for you. So I'll pop my email into the chat, and you can send it to me after if you don't feel comfortable sharing in front of the group. But I saw Victor, you waved your hand a little bit. Do you want to share yours?
Yes, I am a full stack engineer with 13 years of experience. I've been working with React Node and AWS. I enjoy talking with customers, and I know how to take their feedback and land it into a product improvement. I'm a team player and enjoy discussing solutions to problems, solutions to solve problems with technologies.
Awesome. Victor, I feel like we learned a lot about your working style, like your personality in that. So thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Nick, did you want to share yours?
Sure, and it's full of nicks because it came from LinkedIn, and having listened to everybody's and their absence of I and Nick and everything, I feel a little weird, but I don't think I would use this in every context, but LinkedIn just seems one where people often do refer to themselves this way. So my apologies for the 5 references to Nick on that. Nick is a full stack developer, software architect, team lead, and technical manager with 20 years work experience. Nick has also developed and architected applications for several successful startups with a focus on solving complex data engineering problems and creating scalable solutions. Nick's respect for and deep understanding of the people and personalities involved in software development reveals him to be a very effective leader capable of increasing team cohesion and agility while serving his clients with dedication. Nick enjoys hiking the ocean and playing jazz guitar.
Cool. Thank you so much, Nick.
You're welcome. Each one comes with a guitar case, a battery, and
Awesome. Last call before we move on. Okay, we'll move on. And if, like I said, if anybody wants to send their value prop along to me and jam on it a little bit, I'm super open to that. Okay, so how do we use it? Now we have these amazing value propositions, and we need to apply them. So I am going to share my screen again. Okay, so take it online. This is like the hardest part, and I've simplified it as much as I possibly can. So you have your value proposition, and in your value proposition, there are some clear words in there. There's going to be some, like, if you were to highlight the adjectives that describe you or the nouns of the languages that you can code in, there's going to be some clear words. So that is your messaging. So it doesn't have to sound exactly like, it's a few sentences. It's going to be hard to repeat, but and sort of like put on lots of different places. But if you can be consistent with the messaging that you use, that this is what you bring to the table. Your value proposition is kind of who you are, what your online brand is, then the experience of interacting with you online is going to be consistent everywhere they look. So to Nick's earlier point, when if you are saying in all of your online spaces that you are a collaborator and you love to mentor, and then you are in an interview and you say like, oh no, I'm a total lone wolf, I can work on my own all the time, then that's going to come across as really inauthentic. So creating some consistent messaging and trying to use the same words and the same messaging across all your different platforms is going to help any recruiter or anyone interacting with you online get a better sense of who you are as a person, an employee, and someone that could contribute to the company. Does that make sense? Nod. Good. And then my next point is share your work. So I know that GitHub is a place that I've heard, my understanding is that like earlier in your career, you would put your work on GitHub, but people want to see what kind of code you write. People want to see the type of work that you build. So if there's ways that you can share your work, that you can contribute, that is super, super important. If you can, the other place that I think you can share your work is on a personal blog. So, you know, any problems that you have solved, or any code that you've written that you're particularly proud of, putting that on your blog and then sharing that link in your LinkedIn profile, on Twitter, and sort of putting your perspective out into the world will really give recruiters and people that are working in startups the chance to see your work and see your personality. And then in the same way, contribute to the community. So being involved in Stack Overflow, responding to questions. I know you're all looking in these places to find answers and collaborate, but like participating and giving back to the community is really going to enhance your brand and help. And then having a point of view. So you know, if there is a particular thing that you're really excited about, and you're learning about and you want to share about and talk about, I think it's impossible to participate in every conversation, nor should we. But like, what is the thing that you really love, that you're really excited about, that you want to contribute to, that you want to like add to the network and the community, that you can have a point of view on, and then get the chance to talk about. It's kind of like the, you know, like giving someone the hint that you like the ocean. It's something to talk about, and it's something that somebody can really see your perspective and the way that you think about problems that the community is facing today. Yes, Ruth.
I have issue thinking about blog and stuff like that. I find I often get into this kind of nihilistic point of view of like all blog is just for SEO. And I don't know if basically my question is just change my mind. I mean, I know that there are useful blog posts, but like when you're looking for like tech related blog posts, there's so much that's just like so fluffy and just feels like, okay, what is this for? So is there some sort of like angle that you can like think about it in to get around that kind of defeating kind of attitude towards it?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, Ruth. Like there is a lot, and some of it feels like self-indulgent, right? Like people are like boasting, or I think my perspective is, okay, if I want to be really, really blunt about this, like you're doing it so that if a recruiter is searching your name, that they see what you are putting out into the community. They see that you are active, that you're looking for growth, that you're interested in participating. So that, I mean, that's it. Like, but it is also about creating a community for yourself that you want to engage in dialogue with and make you better, right? Like level up your skills, level up your knowledge. So I think that there's a way to blog and share those blogs that is like, that is a request for feedback, that is a request for like, have you encountered this before? Here's the solution that I created, but is there a better way that I could have done this? That like incites conversation and it incites some like debate in a way that's really healthy and productive. And if you kind of think about it in those two ways, like I'm sharing myself, and even if the only person who looks at it is the recruiter that's searching my name, like that's, you know, fine. And then on the other side, like I am showing up and participating in my community. Hopefully I can help somebody solve a problem. Hopefully someone else can help me solve this problem better. And either way, somebody's learning and growing from it.
Basically just any reason that's not, oh, I should make a blog post.
Yes, like so to say that I make a blog post. Yeah, which doesn't feel very motivating, right? Like that's not a fun time. Yeah, Louisa.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on Ruth's comment there. when I was a technical recruiter, I noticed one person, and I specifically remember them because I liked their approach to this problem, because they felt really inauthentic about, posting a blog like, every week just for the sake of it. They almost did they did do like a quarterly review. So every quarter they would be like, here's some meaningful events that I went to, here's a cool course that I signed up for, and here's the progress that I've made on my personal projects or projects I've started in the past quarter. So it was a lot more authentic for them to do that versus saying, okay, I need to like churn out these blog posts every single, week or 2 weeks or month or whatever, because it came across as fluffy or disingenuous. So I think there's different ways to show folks the content that you're interested in, and most especially the things that you've been learning as a developer, just thinking about it in a bit of a different way.
Such a cool idea. Thank you, Louisa. Lauren.
Yeah, just building off of that. So great topic, Ruth. I think that even just the sentiment that you and the statement that you made in terms of there's so much fluff out there to go through that it's hard for when you are looking for technical articles or, thought leadership pieces, that it's so much to comb through. I'm curious to ask this group or, yourself, Ruth, like in the sense that would Stack Overflow or Reddit, like saying that exact statement of saying like, I'm a developer, I'm finding it hard and overwhelming to filter through blog posts on A, B, and C. I've written this, I'd be curious to know how others have gotten around this, or like any sort of, tools or tips. Like, I just think that there'd probably be 10 people that would raise their hand and be like, I feel exactly how you feel, Ruth. And maybe they've had an answer, and maybe it could be, as Jesse kind of mentioned, like a good dialogue to get feedback. And maybe you can find that smaller community of sharing quality content. Like, it doesn't have to reach everyone, but then that's also, to Louisa's point, like a good story to tell in terms of how you've been able to contribute to a community, even if it is just a few like-minded developers like yourself. Does that make sense? Yeah. I always sometimes feel better when I'm like, oh, does anyone else feel the same way? And that, people are responding, and then maybe you can get a solution that you didn't think of.
I think that's a perfect example of how, I was thinking like use the blog to find your people, and other people who feel the same way about the online community as you do, or that share a perspective, because those people are going to find opportunities that look like the opportunities that you're interested in. They're going to pass along your name. Like it's about finding that group of people that you trust and has a view that aligns with yours. Awesome. Any other questions? And we have 1 minute left. Where did that hour go?
That really blew by. I think because we were all so into your engaging content, you did a great job facilitating it. So thank you, Jesse. I hope everybody took away, some valuable insights from this workshop, and that you enjoyed the exercise. We will be sharing the recording of the session afterwards. So if you want a refresher or to review the exercise portion to work on your value proposition a bit more, you'll have that opportunity. And I think Jesse, said that you could reach out if you wanted to share yours with her personally, maybe get some feedback. So thank you for making that offer. If anybody has any questions or feedback about this workshop, feel free to reach out to us on Slack. The engineering success team is always open to any comments that you have. And look out for some more events like this and workshops coming up to help with your personal and professional success. Thanks for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed the rest.
Sorry. Carlos, I think, has his hand up, but I just wanted to check that way.
Yeah, Carlos, jump right in.
Yeah, I just had one question. I don't remember if it was covered, but are there certain platforms that you would prioritize over others?
I would prioritize LinkedIn as like your first one, because it's where recruiters are going to go first. It's just like where they live, if it is for job hunting. And then I would say some way to share your work. So somewhere to show your code is the next place that I would look. So GitHub or having a personal blog where you can share your work and how you solve problems. Those would be the first places that I looked. And if I Google you and other stuff comes up, like super cool. But those are the first two. That's a good question. Thanks, Carlos.
Thanks.
I put my my email in the chat, and Daniel said he's going to send out an email afterwards, so you can include my email in that, Daniel. But thank you everybody for being so engaged, and this was really fun.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jesse. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.